Hi, this is Emmanuel from Parsimony. If you have a solo consulting business like I do, and you're charging an hourly rate for some of your services, keeping track of that time and eventually turning those into invoices can be a tedious process. It was for me. When I first started out consulting, I was spending a couple of hours each month converting my time into invoices. And of course, anytime you're working on administrative stuff like that, you're not working on client projects, and so you're not getting paid because you probably are not charging your clients for putting together their invoices. So it's imperative that your time tracking and invoicing process be seamless and take up as little of your time as possible each month or whatever interval you do invoices on. So this video is designed to give you an overview of how I manage my time tracking and then convert that to invoices at the end of the month. It's really efficient. I only spend, like I said, 5 to 10 minutes each month. And while I'm tracking time, it doesn't take me very long at all. I have a integrated process that I use so that I'm essentially just clicking on a button when I'm working on a project, stopping, or clicking the button to stop. And I can jump between projects pretty seamlessly that way. And I don't have to do anything further. And at the end of the month, I download a file and I have a process for converting those to invoices. So that's what this video is about. Hopefully you find it helpful. If you have any comments, please leave some. And if you find this valuable, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. The tool that I use to track my time for my solo consulting business is called Toggl, and you can find it at toggl.com. That's toggl.com. And when you go to Toggl, there are a couple of different products that they have. I use this tool. It's called Toggl Track. There are a couple of other products, but I began using Toggl a while back ago before they came out with these other products that they gave different names. And so what I'm talking about in particular is called Toggl Track. So I click on that and then I log in using my credentials for my consulting business. And so when you land on Toggl and when you first create an account, of course, this tab here that says timer, which lists the different time intervals that you are tracking work for, will be blank. This whole landing page will be blank. But as you accumulate recordings of times when you were tracking your time for your clients' projects, this list will get longer and you'll be able to scroll through and see different days and the different tasks you were working on. There are a few features that make Toggl really helpful for me, and I'll present those here, and I'm going to only present those that I think are most relevant to other people having a solo consulting business. There are some features like team that are applicable if you have a larger business that, so let's say, for example, you have a consulting business that has several employees and you can work together or often work together as smaller teams working on different projects. Something like the team feature would be helpful. But again, that's not relevant for me, and it's not relevant for most people having a solo consulting business, so I won't be talking about that. But what I will go through are projects, clients, and then reports, and then settings. And specifically within settings, I'll go over integrations, which allows this Toggl application to play a more seamless role with other tools, such as the Asana project management tool that I use, and allows you to do things like have toggle time tracker on your browser and be able to use toggle more easily across different tools. So starting out with projects, obviously, the projects are just that. They are the projects that you work on for clients. And so you can create new projects. After clicking on projects, you can create a new project, and we'll just create a hypothetical example here. I'll call this annual stakeholder survey. So let's pretend that my business is working on a project for a client where they do an annual stakeholder survey. I'm helping deploy that survey. I'll be collecting the data. I'll be doing the analysis and writing up a report. So I can create that, and then I can associate that project with a client. So I will, let's assume that I do not have this client already in my list of clients, so I can create a new one. And let's just call this Anderson Foundation, and I'll add fake at the end so I know to remove this later on. There's this feature here called private project that enables me to make this a private project. Again, this is more relevant for when you're using this tool within the context of a larger company that has several people, and you can decide whether certain projects are viewable by other people. But that's not really relevant for me. And so I, by default, always make this non-private. It doesn't mean that other people can see it. After all, if they're not part of this account and I haven't added other people, then it's still only accessible to me. But this is just something I do out of convention. You can color code these if you want. I usually don't bother distinguishing by color. So once you've specified these things, then you can create the project by clicking Create Project. Now, once I have the project created, I can go in and specify tasks. It's important to note that Toggle has a few different subscription tiers. The free tier does not allow you to drill into a project and specify the different tasks and keep track of tasks within a project. That's important for me, and so I pay for the lowest paid tier. I pay $9 a month for this feature, primarily for this feature, which really simplifies turning this time tracking into invoices, and you'll see what I mean here. So with this paid subscription that I have, and I'll show you that subscription here. So $9 per month, just one user, just for me. And then I'll go into the projects and go to the annual stakeholder survey we created for illustration. Now, what I do is I will create a task for each phase of the project. So when I write a proposal for clients, I write out different phases for a project. I typically have between 3 and 4 phases for a project. And so I make those tasks equivalent to those phases. So here, phase 1. I usually make phase 1 something that I'll call requirements gathering. And this is where at the beginning of a project, I need to fully explore all the background information for this project, make sure I'm up to speed, make sure that I have all the necessary communication so that the client knows what it is that they'll be getting from me as part of this project, that sort of thing. And then for this, given that this is a mock project and where it's an annual stakeholder survey, perhaps phase 2 is something like, survey development and deployment. So creating the survey and deploying it. And then let's say phase 3 is data gathering and report writing. And so I'd have these 3 phases. Now, sometimes I will create hourly estimates for each phase, and you can put that here in the paid version of Toggle also. So I can put in an estimate here and say, perhaps, my high-end range for this, my high-end hourly estimate was that this first phase was going to take 30 hours. This second phase was going to take 50 hours. This last phase was going to take 40 hours, just throwing in values here so I can illustrate the benefit of doing this. So as you continue to track time on this, it will show up here and it will give you an indication of how close you are to hitting that estimate that you had, which is nice because it can give you a sense of how under or over you are for a particular phase. Now, once you have the project specified and the client associated with that project, you can start recording time for that project. Now, one option is to go in here into Toggle when you're starting a project and start typing it up under the timer tab. So for example, if you were having a project kickoff meeting, you could specify that, start the time, and then select the corresponding project and further drill down into the associated task. So let's say this project kickoff meeting was one of the things that I told the client we'd be doing during phase 1, so I can select that. And we're mapping the time to a particular client and a particular task. So a particular project for a client and a specific task within that project. And once you're done with this, you can just hit stop. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I don't actually want that to be in my list because that's not real. But of course, it would be a little tedious to keep coming back to this website to track time. So luckily, there are other integrations that you can have with Toggle that will allow you to use it sort of more seamlessly as you are working on other web pages or other tools on your computer. And one of the ones that I use that allows the Toggle button to appear here is a web browser extension for Google Chrome. And so, if you Google Toggle Chrome extension, you can find it here. And of course, I already have it, but you'd be able to install that as an extension for your Google Chrome browser. And then you can go to managing your extensions and you'll notice that you are able to allow this Chrome extension to access a variety of sites here, and I enable all of them by default. And so one of the things that does is allow you, so for example, if I were going into my Gmail, and I were going to work on a specific task, let's say a client sent me an email and asked me to do something, or I was simply reading that email and taking the time to respond to it, I'd be able to click on the link, and then there would be a start timer button right above the email. So I could click Start Timer, and then again select the relevant project and task associated with that. This happens with lots of helpful websites. So for example, I could go into Google Docs, and let's say I was creating a new Google Doc that was going to be for a client. And there would be the link appearing here, because the Google Docs is one of the websites that you give access to for the browser extension for Toggle. Now, there may be times where you're accessing a website or using a tool that doesn't have that Toggle extension, Chrome extension. And for that purpose, I'll just use this toggle button here that comes with the Toggle extension. It places it here. And so no matter what I'm working on, I can just click on it here. So I can fire up Google Chrome and just click on this and then type up what I'm working on. Maybe it's draft survey questions. And then hit start and select that project. And in particular, the survey development and deployment phase 2. And so it's tracking. And then when I click on this again to stop it, it'll stop it. So I find that these ways of starting and stopping the timer and accessing the timer are really helpful. Another way to use Toggle that I haven't used before, but I will, and I imagine it makes things even simpler, is to use the Toggle desktop application. So you can go to toggle.com, again that's toggle without an E, /track /toggle-desktop /, and that'll bring you to this page here where you can download the Windows app. And so you can download it for Windows, and I'll just install that here quickly. I'll allow it to run when Windows logs in, because there's no harm in that. This is my work desktop. So here I am. I'll be able to log in here and then use Toggle on the desktop, which should give it even more flexibility. So even if I'm not working on a web-based tool such as Google Docs or email, and maybe I'm working on a Word document, I'd be able to click on the tool, this Toggle tracker, and track my time for projects there. So once I logged in to the desktop application, I can see that it was added to my computer. And so I'll just pin that to my taskbar, because that's how integral a tool Toggle is for my business. So I'll be able to click on it, and then again, much like the Chrome extension, I'll be able to just type what I'm doing, start the time, and then associate it with a particular project. And it looks like I can expand this here as well. And so, yeah, I think this will end up being a helpful integration into the desktop. Getting back to the Toggle website, one of the things that I've done is I go into settings, and I have under integrations, I use Asana for project management. If you haven't watched the video, I have a video on how I use Asana for managing my projects for my solo consulting business. Asana, I use the free version of Asana. And one of the nice things you can do is you can integrate your Asana account with your Toggle account. And so you can synchronize the projects from your Asana account to your Toggle account. In an Asana, of course, you create projects and tasks. So by having set up the synchronization and allowing it to automatically synchronize, what happens is, rather than having to do what we did early on here, where I create a new project and create tasks, and then simultaneously have the same projects and tasks manually entered in Asana. Once you enter those projects and tasks in Asana, if you have this integration here set up, what will happen is that the moment you add a new project and tasks in Asana, they will automatically be populated here in Toggle. And of course, who wouldn't love that? You don't want to have to do mundane tasks over and over again because you're using different tools for different purposes. So this is something that I use regularly. For this exercise, I showed how to create those projects manually, but if you have the integration in Asana, that would happen automatically. What would not happen automatically is associating your project with a client. So you would still need to come into Toggle and then click on the project that was ported over from Asana, and you would need to select the client. If you already have a client that you have in Toggle, then add them to this project, or add them to the new project, or manually enter that client for the first time and then associate them with this project. Now, I said early on that the reason I used Toggle for time tracking is because it's made invoicing much easier. And I'll show you in part why that is. Part of that reason is because of the accounting software that I use and getting the data from Toggle into that accounting software. But it all starts with the reports tab here. So let's say I've been using Toggle, I've been tracking it through this extension, through my desktop extension, through my desktop application for Toggle. They even have Toggle for your phone, so you can use it if you're on the fly and going to meetings in person. That was more prevalent, of course, before COVID. But at the end of the month, then when I do invoices for the previous month, I can go over to the report section, and the report section is nice because I can select the previous month. It will provide me data, so an overview of my hours across the month. It will provide percentages for those hours by clients. So, this dashboard idea, it'll tell me the total duration of time worked for each client, the amount associated with that, because for each project, you can actually specify the hourly rate for that project. And then, of course, the percentages. It'll give the high-level overview of the number of hours that were clocked, how many of those hours were billable, because of course you can be working on tasks like administrative tasks that are not billable. So if you were keeping track of the time you were working on your marketing effort or things like that, or the time that you spend invoicing, then of course your clocked hours and your billable hours wouldn't match up. And then it will give you an overview of the total amount for or total revenue for that month based on what you have in here. And so that's nice from a sort of high level descriptive perspective. But then when it's time to create invoices, I click on the detailed version of the report, which lists every single entry that I made. And then I can export that report and download it as a CSV. And so then I can open up that CSV and I have all the same information, but now as a CSV. And having it all in a CSV like this is the first step in being able to put it into invoices. Assuming you have you use an accounting software that allows you to upload Excel files or CSV files and convert those into invoices. And I use such an accounting app called Wave Apps. It's something that I use for my solo consulting business. It's a pretty simple accounting app. It's free, unless you do payroll, and I do pay myself a paycheck. And so I use the payroll feature, but even then I believe it's like $24 a month, which is on the cheaper side among similar accounting tools that also do payroll. So I'll create another video about that and showing how I go from invoices or time tracking from Toggle to invoices in Wave. But throughout this whole process, each month, again, I'm down to maybe 5-10 minutes of going here, exporting out files, and then for the time, and then uploading it into Wave for invoicing. And that's always good when you can minimize the time you spend doing administrative tasks that you don't get paid for. So that's an overview of the way I use the Toggle app to track the hourly projects, or the projects for which I charge an hourly rate for clients. Again, the whole reason I use Toggle and particularly to track and then export out the time is so that at the end of the month I have accurate time tracking that takes very little time for me to manage throughout the month, and also facilitates efficient invoicing, so that I'm not spending a lot of time each month invoicing for the previous month. And so far, Toggle has played a big role in helping me do that very efficiently. Now there is another part to this, and that is once I have the file taken out from Toggle that has a list of all of the time that I've spent across the various projects for that month, I then upload it into the accounting tool that I use called Wave Apps. And there's a separate process I use for that, which I'll cover in another video, where I talk about the Wave Apps website and why I use that for accounting for my solo consulting business. I was using QuickBooks Online, but that wasn't quite a good fit, and I'll tell you why in the next video. Hopefully you found this video helpful and gave you some ideas of more efficient time tracking. If you use another tool and it's achieved that goal of minimizing the time you spend on the administrative tasks associated with tracking time and invoicing at the end of the month, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear about it and learn more about other opportunities or ways. Perhaps some of them are an improvement over my approach. And if you found value from this video or you like it, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.